Hello, welcome back to the Rubbish YouTube channel. Hello. It was you. We have some new goats. And this is unexpected. This is the smallest and youngest of the new goats. That's Tank. Yeah, believe it. Yeah, that's Tank. Oh, your brothers and sisters, your brothers are over there. We've got Sergi, because he's a Mohican like Sergi Canos used to have, former Brentford player. We've got Glottis and Chapito. But anyway, we're not here to talk about goats. I was actually hiding in the barn. I was going to start with Noddy to say we have news on Noddy, we have progress on Noddy. So the next video will be Noddy and its coat of many rust. But actually we're here today to talk about that. And the reason I've started in the barn is because it is bloody windy out there today. It's typical after a week of sort of 30 degrees, wall-to-wall sunshine and horseflies. The wind has decided to get up today and it's been quite showery as well. So apologies if you get some buffeting. It's a good test of the microphone, I guess. Although I expect the sound of the wind rustling through the trees is A, better for ASMR purposes, and B, better than my waffle. But we're here to talk about this. Now, if you're a regular viewer, you'll know that this is part of the fleet, but it's not mine. It is my oldest son. He bought this, I think it arrived. Did it arrive on his 18th birthday? I think so, maybe. So it is his first hot hatch. We could say my first Lotus, although that is stretching things a bit. But November 23 this arrived, and it spent a lot of time off the road, which I'll come on to in a minute. But I thought it was time to introduce the only Proton currently on the fleet. Obviously you'll know there was a Proton previously with its magical light bar. But I think what I'm going to do now is kind of pause, because when it was raining yesterday and I was meant to be doing this video, instead I went out for a drive in the car and then came back and did kind of a desktop history of the car, very brief history in the car, on the car. So I'm going to drop that in now, around about now. I'm going to do Sean Lloyd's kind of hand signals. Think back to the end of the 80s. The Berlin Wall was falling, the Jive Bunny and its pesky master mixers were messing with the pop charts, and in a twist no one saw coming, Malaysia's national car maker gatecrashed a UK economy on the brink of recession. Yep, Proton landed here in 1989 with budget pricing, old Mitsubishi tech, and the kind of warranty you paid extra for in Rumbelows. In just 2 years, Proton had become the fastest growing new car company in UK history. At one point it even had more dealers than Citroën and a 1% market share. Had Proton Cars UK entered the Dragon's Den as a new business startup, it would have driven away with 5 investment offers and a cuddle from Tuka. But like most good things, it couldn't last. As the UK economy bounced back and buyers got picky again, Proton's bargain bin Mitsubishis began looking, well, a bit tired. And while Proton tried its hand with quirky newcomers like the Impian, Gen 2, Savvy and Satria Neo, the UK market had moved on. By 2014, Proton quietly exited the UK, though its decline had started long before. So much for partying like it's 1989. Still, if there was one shining moment, one flash of brilliance during Proton's brief time here, it was this, the Satria GTi. A Go Faster special designed to relieve the max power generation of their McReadies, using little more than a boost in power and more cosmetic enhancements than Jody Marsh. Forget the beige image, the Satria GTi was the real deal. A Go Faster special with Lotus handling, a hot hatch makeover, and just enough power to make your mates jealous in a McDonald's car park. You see, here's the twist. Proton owned Lotus. Yep, in 1996 they paid £51 million for a controlling stake, going full takeover by 2003. And while they never fully exploited that connection, the GTi got the Lotus treatment, at least in spirit. The GTi used Mitsubishi's familiar 1.8-litre 4G93 engine, detuned slightly to a very precise 132.7 brake horsepower. It wasn't a rocket, and 0 to 60 time of 7.8 seconds was always optimistic, but the Lotus-tuned suspension gave the hot Proton a USP. On the outside, a full Lotus design body kit, chunky bumpers, arch extensions, twin exhausts, roof spoiler and 6-spoke alloys. Inside, white dials, Recaro seats, aluminium pedals, faux carbon. It had all the hot hatch cliches and wore them proudly. It screamed GTI from every angle. speedo, steering wheel, even the scuff plates. In the beginning, before the compact became the Satria, it was called the Proton GTi, bit similar to the Proton Coupe. There was even a protongti.co.uk website. I wonder where that website goes today. In 1999, the Satria GTi cost around £14,500. It's about £26,500 in today's money. It was more expensive than a Peugeot 206 GTi or a Fiat Punto GT, and lacked the badge appeal. Still, the Lotus connection gave it credibility, not to mention a respectable 4-star rating by Evo magazine. Today, most GTIs have either been thrashed on track days or sacrificed for engine swaps. But to a select few, this car still matters. It's a cult classic, the underdog hot hatch that punched above its weight. The Proton story in the UK is a short one, but it had its moments, and in the Satria GTi it gave us something genuinely special. Not perfect, not polished, but real. It's a reminder even the underdogs have their day. 26 years on, the Satria GTi is more than just a Proton with a body kit. It's a symbol of what might have been. It may have been built in Malaysia, but the legend was made in Hethel, or something. So there we go. It was pretty terrible. I'm guessing most of you skipped the 3 minutes or so of that history. But welcome back, and thanks for being there if you are still here. But the Proton Satria GTi is a car that I've got a history with. I can claim to like these before they were cool. I can claim to kind of be championing this. I think back in 2010, when Petrolblog launched, I think one of the very first articles was a Banger Watch article on the Satria GTi. Because at the time they were getting on for 6-7 years old, the very latest ones, the very last ones off the line. Because at the time, going back 15 years, these were bangers. There was no interest in these cars, and they were sort of hovering around the £500 to £1,000 mark, and there was just general apathy, really. And that's the thing about the Satria GTi, and I'm sure you've seen, there's quite a surprising amount of videos on this car on YouTube, and the common theme is rust. If it hasn't got rust, or if it hasn't been welded, it will need to be welded at some point, unless it's been stored in a climate-controlled basement. Honestly, check for rust. This has had significant welding, and actually when my son bought it in November 23, it arrived, actually, and I won't go into the details of why the bonnet doesn't sit right. You can contact my son on Instagram. I'll put the handle at the bottom. I think he's just changed it to something like that blue disco. So I'll put that on the screen in a minute. But when it arrived, it was pristine. Everything had been done. So the previous owner had redone all the bumpers, he'd refurbished the wheels, he'd redone the arch extensions, the sill, all the plastic trim was basically refinished. The bodywork was pretty good, and it still is. The bodywork still looks pretty good. But it looked immaculate on the top, and actually the interior looked fantastic as well. So all the signs were, it was a good one, but my God, there was some rust underneath it. It's a proper hot hatch. What I like about this, and what I discovered again yesterday, because yesterday was the first time I've driven one of these on my own, without my son next to me, since, well, actually 2004, so 20 years ago was the last time I'd driven one of these, because I had one as a company car. And that's a story I'll tell you over a beer sometime, or at an event when Petrolblog launches its first event next year. Teaser coming soon. It's something I'll explain to you, but it involved the second biggest football ground car park in the UK and 4 female account executives. So yeah, I had one as a company car. As company cars go, it wasn't great. I mean, it's very thirsty, it's kind of all or nothing, but it made sense at the time for reasons I'd explain over a beer. This was an outlier for Proton. The target audience for Proton at the time didn't give a stuff. The average Proton owner was very loyal. They would have 4 or 5 Protons. They would be very keen to fly the Proton flag. They'd pop back to the dealer to get it serviced every year. They were Proton loyalists. The problem was they were old. People would come in, they would buy a Persona or a Wira or a Compact or a Satria, because originally this was a Proton Compact, which itself was based on a Mitsubishi Colt. And then it became the Satria just after this was launched. And that's an interesting point, actually, because you notice this, it hasn't got any Satria badges. Because when the car launched, it was simply known as Proton GTi. But then when they introduced the Satria name, it became the Satria GTi. So this was actually just a Proton GTi, and some insurers struggled to find it. But yes, Proton owners were loyal, but they were dying, and this was not their kind of car. There was a pen portrait made of a stereotypical Proton owner, and his name was Sid. He lived in a bungalow quite close to the coast. He read the Daily Express, and he bought his clothes in Marks and Spencer. This doesn't fit that. Now, Sid may have had a hot hatch in his past. He may have had a Lotus Elan, or he might have had a Lotus Esprit in the past. He wasn't going to jump out of his Proton Wira and buy a Proton Satria GTi. That just wasn't going to happen. So they needed fresh blood. They needed youngsters at the market. They needed the max power generation. And that's why it looks how it looks. Now, you might look at that and think, God, I don't like some of the things that Lotus did. But at least it looks, well, I remember one magazine said it looked too similar to the regular car. I just can't see how you can come to that conclusion. I think in profile, it looks absolutely fabulous. But you think this wasn't just, they didn't send this car to Lotus just to have a kind of a tickle. You know, it was a proper full-on smooch, if you like. You know, a lot of the sort of bodywork and the enhancements were done to reduce drag and improve aerodynamics. And obviously the best thing obviously is the ride and handling, or making audiences fall over everywhere. But I think they did a really, really good job, and I think it's aged really well. I think at the time, you were asking punters to part with £15,000 for a car that was based on old 90s technology. And let's face it, this was a car for the new millennium. So you're asking them to put a lot of money on a car with no established brand, certainly in this market, and that was quite expensive. It was using quite crude mechanicals. You know, the 1.8 Mitsubishi engine was good and had a lot of heritage, but it was old. But actually, as time goes on, it's becoming more charming. I mean, this came out when the Ford Puma was basically the small front-wheel drive funster of choice. Honestly, I bought one. It's the only car I've ever bought brand new. I had to wait till 2001 to afford it, but it was fabulous, and everything else was playing second fiddle. But this was the only hot hatch that could claim proper Lotus involvement. Proper, and it does. The grip is outstanding. The way it goes around corners, to use a horrible cliche, which I'm almost killing myself for saying it does go around corners on rails. It's very flat. And also it's now riding on, because one of the things when we first got it, it had a good set of tyres. It had a good set branded tyres, but they were old. So they still had plenty of tread, but they were old. So the compound was very, very hard, and it made the ride quality terrible. But thanks to our friends at Davanti, it's now running on a set of Ecora, no relation to Derek, HP1s, and they're brand new tyres out this year, February, I think, of this year, and they're sort of mid-range. HP is for high performance, by the way. So far, so good. I mean, obviously we're coming from tyres that were harder than casters, so that's got to be taken into account. But as my son said last night, he said he can't believe how good the grip is, and the road noise has gone down immensely since we've put these on. And I think they retail for somewhere between £80 and £90 per corner fitted. So, you know, a decent price, something you could afford to get a full set of tyres. And it was an advisory, so it had to be done anyway. So we're only too pleased to put these on. Top of my head, I think they're rated A for noise. Yeah, A for noise, and I can definitely vouch for that. C for rolling resistance, and B for grip, wet grip, which is good, especially if you live where we do. Exactly, you know all about wet driving. There's another new goat. Look, this is Manny. Not Manny. That is giving the game away. This isn't Manny. This is Mungo. Mungo's a rescue goat. He's like 14. Yeah, bless him. We are still rescuing goats. There's another one arriving tomorrow. Not called Jerry, unfortunately, called Hugo. You're going to have a friend called Hugo tomorrow. But I digress. And honestly, as my first hot hatch, in the case of my son, is fantastic. I've never seen him smile more than when he's driving this. He always emerges with a big smile on his face. So what do they do inside? Again, if you've watched that terrible 3-minute history lesson, you'll know that they did quite a bit. And I was thinking this yesterday when I was driving it. They got the basics right. The gear knob, which I don't think is meant to be that shiny, but many hands have rubbed it, is fantastic. White dial is a bit of a cliche, but it's what I'd expect in a hot hatch. Drill pedals or aluminium pedals, again, a cliche, but they work. GTi carpet mats, GTi tread plates, and Recaro seats. Fantastic, honestly, probably one of the best points of the car. The Recaro seats, just superb. Yeah, some of the things are quite questionable. Some of the taste isn't, well, it's certainly not to my taste. I don't rate this. I think it's a bit naff, but it's of its time, I guess. And in Lotus can only do what they can do with the hardware available to them, and the budget constraints, I guess. I would have had a double DIN radio, I believe. Certainly the later ones did. It would have been a Clarion double DIN silver radio there. It's got air conditioning, which is good. GTi on the centre steering wheel, centre of the steering wheel even. It hasn't got a central steering wheel. It's not a McLaren F1. Bit big, but you know, fine. And that's what a GTi match should look like. Yeah, I mean, you can knock this, and you know, some of the quality, some of the plastics haven't aged well. It's certainly built to a price. It's pretty naff, and I think that was a problem really when Proton were trying to get 14. I think it was 14,500 roughly. They have got cup holders. The not so good because they haven't got the bit that folds down to hold the cup in place. So at the moment they're kind of doing half job. But you have got cup holders on your Satria GTi, in case you weren't aware. The brochure, this is from a later brochure. This is from 2003, not long before production stopped. Got a letter here from Proton Cars UK. With Lotus legendary engineering, given exceptional ride and handling. Proton didn't have the brand to support such a car. Bit of trivia, that car photo was taken in the studio at the Beaulieu Motor Museum. In fact, all the statics in this were taken at Beaulieu Motor Museum. That's photographer, lovely guy, top photographer Simon Clay. Clearly not taking that photo at the wheel of the car in the New Forest. And you can see the Satria badge, which this lacks. So Satria, proper Satria GTi. And as I alluded to in the terrible history lesson, very precise 132.7 brake horsepower. But I remember, I mean, this was a big thing, and I felt at the time this wasn't, Proton didn't use this enough, but it was rated very highly by Evo magazine. And again, I put this in the terrible history lesson. But they had this is, so again, you can see here the Extreme Proton GTi. Might want to check where that domain name goes to now. And then it was pitched against the Ford Puma and the Punto HGT and the Peugeot 206 GTi, and it did well. It gave a good account for itself. Again, it was the ride and handling and the Recaro seats that kind of stood out. But to see a Proton in Evo magazine at the time was unheard of. It just came out of left field. It was like your nan giving up bingo and taking up bungee jumping. It's just totally unheard of. It was just came out of the left field. It wasn't the quickest, it wasn't the most refined, but it probably, with the exception of the Puma, had the best ride and handling. And obviously the Puma got a 5-star rating. I actually bought my Puma off the back of Evo's reviews back in the day. But it came a credible joint second. And I think that's very, very good. But 14,499, more expensive than the Puma, £500 cheaper than the Puma, more expensive than the 206, and significantly more expensive than the Punto. I've waffled on a lot. Let's start it up. It's got a slight blow in the manifold, or slight blow. It's got quite a significant blow in the manifold. So it's not. It is warm. It's not a cold engine. Yeah, you can hear the. But it sounds good. The Mitsubishi engine with the proud Proton logo, pretty standard, apart from a ram air filter, which I think my son's going to go back to standard. And also I think he's going to go back to twin exhausts. So I don't know if he's going to have the square exits, but he's certainly going to go back to twin exhaust. There's Noddy. But yeah, honestly, it's been really, really good. But yeah, so this is the introduction to the Satria, or Proton GTi. And honestly, what I like about this, and just on a sort of a final note, what I love about this car is the fact that it's a proper Sunday morning, get up early, go for a quick drive across the moors kind of car. There is no infotainment system to distract you. There's no Bluetooth for your phone to connect to. It's just 5-speed box, very, very simple. Feels very, very old school, and it's also exclusive. I mean, when was the last time you saw one of these, unless it was on a YouTube channel better than this one? A lot of these were sacrificed for their engines or sacrificed in the name of track days. So they're going to get rare now, and of course the Lotus connection gives it provenance, gives it heritage. Quite a tenuous one to a point. You know, it's not up there with the Cortina, the Carlton, or the Sunbeam, but it's got a connection, and I'm a big fan of it. What do you think? Let me know. In the meantime, the next video will be on Noddy. Thank you for watching.